to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Before we get going, Scott, if I could get you to join me at the podium, please.
Yes, we can.
Oh, yeah.
Easy. I know too.
Oh, it's his.
Let's take it easy.
I'll put you on this side. Okay, raise your right hand, please. I state your name.
Scott Schlater,
Do solemnly swear to support the Constitution.
solemnly swear that
Support the Constitution
support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota,
and of the state of Minnesota,
county of Sueur, and city of Sueur,
county of Sueur, and city of Sueur,
and to discharge faithfully the duties
and to discharge faithfully the duties
revolving upon me as a city council member,
revolving upon me as a city council member,
as to the best of my judgment and ability.
as to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations. Welcome to our city council. That's always the fun stuff. Let's hope the rest of it's going to be so much fun. Okay. Can I get an approval, a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and have been made available to the city council at least 2 days in advance of the meeting. The items will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from this agenda and considered in normal sequence. On tonight's consent agenda, we have 2 items. The first should be your new handout, replacing 4A for the city council minutes for January 27th, 2020, the revised copy. And we also have item B, disbursement approvals for February 10th, 2020. Any discussion, concerns, thoughts, ideas? If not, I'll entertain a motion then to go ahead and approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Public comment provides an opportunity for the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Persons wishing to make a comment must sign up in advance of the meeting on a sheet provided and identify themselves by providing a name and address. I do not have anybody on the sheet tonight. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address city council? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to go ahead and close the public comment portion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Regular agenda, first item on the docket tonight is 6L for the 2020 donation evaluation, city administrator approval.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council. Before you is an annual exercise we go through to evaluate applications for our donation program. A little history about the City of Sueur's donation program. Funds that are used for the program come from the electric department's proceeds through utilities. It's essentially in there because historically the city has always offered a program like this. I will note donation programs of this nature aren't common in municipalities, but it is something that we've done as a community and we've continued to do. During the budget process for 2021, if we want to adjust the number, as you can see, we have more applicants than we've ever had before, and an amount that exceeds the budget, so there will be some tough decisions tonight as far as who gets what and how this is divvied up. But if you want to increase it, the proper time would be during the budget process. It starts probably in June or July of this year, or if you want to reduce it, that'd be also the time to do it as well. As I alluded, there were 10 applicants. They're listed in the packet. There is one that has been handed out for the HRA for their meal program that we authorized last year for $1,500. The request this year is $1,000. So that has been included, so you'll see the numbers have changed a little bit as far as the total requests. Right now, the total requests we have in the applications are $36,835.06. Again, the budget that we've passed for this item is $20,000. There is basically 3 requirements that are required for this to be a public purpose expenditure. I've included a memo that at the time legal counsel Coriel prepared for city council, I believe back in 2017, that kind of goes through the requirements, and then also gives a couple examples. There were some specific questions asked of legal counsel at that time for Habitat for Humanity and Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, where he offered opinions for those. That's been included, handed out, available to the public if they want to look at it. Also, it must be authorized in either state statute or the city's charter, and also it must qualify as a public purpose expenditure. I have included for reference our public purpose expenditure policy that we've adopted. It's been handed out. One, because Councilmember Sueur is new here, this is something that was, I believe, done in 2018 and adopted by City Council. So those items, think about those as the requests are evaluated. Regarding the requests, as you can see in this list here, we have 10 applicants and the amounts that each applicant has requested. On the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, you will see the recipients from 2019, and that total came out to $20,000. There was a meeting in March that we looked at the HRA's request and also the school district's request for the tennis courts, and those were also approved. And that maxed out that $20,000 for 2019. You can look at the 2020 applicants, and you can see that there's quite a few more there. So the proper process for this is just requesting that there's a motion or motions to approve each donation request. What that could look like is you could approve multiple requests in one motion. If you wanted to do some all at once, we could do that. I can work as kind of tracking what we've approved, and kind of can give real-time updates as far as that goes. If a council member has an idea on how to do this, I'm all ears. It's a tough situation to be in. So with that, I'll turn it over to City Council, and I'll assist how I can.
I guess the first question I would have, City Administrator Kruger, would be, which of these 10 programs does not qualify under state statute? And the second part of the question would be, which of these programs are not supported by our charter for the City of Sueur? So we can go ahead and eliminate if possible, and that way we can narrow down the 36,000.
Yeah, so they all, I believe, meet the donation policy, and that's basically the application, filling out the application, proving that they're a not-for-profit or some sort of exempt entity. Related to the charter, there's nothing really in there as far as our charter goes. State statute, it's really, we can determine what we think is a public purpose expenditure. We've had discussions about some of these. Past precedents has shown that past councils have indicated that they're a public purpose expenditure. That can change depending on the city council. We have a policy, our public purpose expenditure policy doesn't necessarily think about our donation program. It's more a personnel related item. So I would say, as far as that goes, barring legal opinion or legal request from legal counsel, I would say they all meet those requirements. They're all eligible, either through past precedents or what we've done in the past, or just meeting the qualifications of our donation program. So I don't think there's anything that comes out that it's a business that's requesting funds for something. It's all they're all for programs that that would benefit the community or could benefit the community. Yeah.
Council members, any ideas on how we should proceed?
I don't have any ideas per se. It's very difficult. Okay. Let me point something out just to show you the interrelationships. If you look at the HRA one, the last one. They're asking us for $1,000, but they're indicating they're also getting $2,000 from United Fund. And both of them are in front of us. That seems, there's something, I can't put those two together, quite frankly, okay? And I'm not against either organization. I don't mean it that way. It's just, we've got money going from one place into another place. And
I definitely hear what you're saying. The thing that I'd like to point out is that we have $36,000 with the requests and $20,000 to work with. So I believe that's probably around, if we were to support each of these, we're looking at about 55%. If we were to go ahead and support each and every one of them, 55% would be the number that would equally get each of these 10 involved in some kind of charitable contribution equal to $20,000. So I'd come up with some preliminary numbers that I had sent out, and you guys have had an opportunity to look at that. Does that sound like some kind of a way we'd like to go, or is there somebody that would like to perhaps take something off of these 10 and whittle down the list?
let me finally speak again, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
I understand that, and I think that's a reasonable approach, but I think what you just said is really important. If we can take some of these off and give more to the others, I think that's appropriate. I'll start the bidding, so to speak.
Sure.
We'll talk about that. I'm not moving this, I'm just talking about them. Number 7 and 8. Small Business Development Center, Minnesota State, $1,500. Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, $2,500. Those are organizations that are going to exist whether we give them our money or not. I don't think they give us the bang for the buck back to our community the others do. Though I know there's some here who've worked with them and they disagree. So maybe the answer is to reduce them first and work from there. But these are really difficult decisions, and you kind of wish you were like a parent. You could give your kid everything they wanted, but you can't.
Right.
And I don't mean to say the citizens are like children. I don't mean it that way. It's just an analogy of how I feel about it. It's difficult. So. But I don't know how people feel about those two, but I'm particularly concerned about the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. I don't see that giving us directly back to this community. When I look at what they do, they give us a report. I don't hear our name mentioned very often. I hear a lot in the area, but I don't hear it here. And it sounds selfish to say that, but we have to manage these dollars. The other one, some folks here can probably speak to. I think there have been some work done in our community through the Small Business Development Center, Minnesota State, but I could be wrong there. So.
Anybody else have anything to offer?
I got a question.
Councilmember Kirby.
Can you explain to me again why the Sueur Community Center is so much higher than it was last year?
I can. So the Sueur Community Center, the Sueur Community Center is actually a new program that they're proposing. It's for a scholarship program to allow residents or people that may not meet income thresholds to be able to participate in rec programming. So I'm not sure, I think it was an idea or possibly discussed at RPAC. They suggested let's try to go towards a donation program for that. And then staff developed what they believe could be a way to fund some underprivileged individuals to participate in recreation programming. Hopefully that answers your question. One thing I will note, we with the Small Business Development Center, we just had a succession planning event. It's an example of something that they've done in the community. They're the ones that hosted that event. They're the ones that came to Sueur and did that program, although we only had one individual show up for it. So they are active.
That would be part of the REV program as well, correct?
That was not related to REV at all. That was this SBDC. So that's an example. They do a few things. Smith also does a few things. We have REV. I'm not advocating for either one, but they do participate in the community for what they can do.
What do we know regarding the United Fund of Sueur? That seems to be a new one on the list, and it's a pretty hefty amount.
Yeah, so they've kind of rebooted their organization over the last couple of years, it seems like, and they've been really active in the community. I don't want to advocate for any one of these, but I'm just trying to provide some information. But the sign that you see as you come in from the north side on Commerce Street that's on Scotch Churchill's building. That was a project that the Sueur Community Fund, or sorry,
Yeah, different.
oh, is it different?
That's the community fund.
Oh,
not
the
the
Sueur
United-
Community Fund. Maybe Newell's right. So, yeah, maybe I may be incorrect. So I was thinking that was the United Fund of Sueur, but that is the Sueur Community Foundation. So two different groups. I'm not sure then about United Fund of Sueur.
So then the United Fund of Sueur, do they not also support the food shelf and also the nutritional program?
They do.
So those programs are clients of the United Fund of Sueur. Okay. And I think also the HRA is involved with that too, correct?
They could be. Every time we have individuals that apply, we invite them to come in and talk. If they're here, they can speak to their organization. I know we have a few people in the crowd that could represent. So,
Is there anybody that's representing any of these charities that would like to go ahead and address City Council?
I'm not representing any of the ones that you're discussing, but I represent the,
Please come to the podium and identify yourself, sir.
So, thank you, Council. My name is Regan Ream, and I'm here representing the Sueur Henderson Little League and then the Minnesota River Hockey Program. So, not any of the organizations that you were discussing, but if you have any questions about the
They're
two
on the
that I'm
list.
representing.
Yeah, they're on the list.
Yep.
So what do you mean you're not representing them?
Well, you're the United Fund of Sueur, the ones that you were directly
The ones we're talking
discussing.
Oh, okay, okay.
But I am here representing two that are on the list, that are the baseball program and the hockey program. So happy to answer any questions about those.
And to be clear, last year, the hockey received 3346.50.
Right.
And
So
that's what you're looking for this year.
yeah, and that was a number that was put together by at that time the rink manager. So I'm not exactly sure what makes up that full number. The donation request would typically what we would pay for would be the hourly rate for the ice, and then there's an hourly rate for the Merrick room and I forget what the name of the other room, but the two rooms that are there that we have to rent that allow for the teams to utilize them during the day. So the day that this donation is being requested for is our 4th annual Mike Jamboree. So it's a one-day event. Starts at 8:30, and this year it's going to go until 8:30. There'll be 24 teams that come in, and 4 of those teams are our teams. So 20 teams from other communities. We split up the rink into 3 little mini rinks. We have these boards that we divide up. So it's all 9U kids. So basically 1st to 3rd graders, and then there's 3 games going on at a time. So last year it was presented to us that there was a possibility, and it was approved by the council to get that day donated. So that donation request is specifically for that day and for our My Program and Jamboree that comes to town.
Okay, city administrator approval regarding that program, wasn't that pretty much an in-kind donation for that tournament last year?
Well, it was in kind with that was the cost estimate for all of the in kind donations. So, as Regan alluded to, the ice time. There's also personnel time, setup, takedown costs, things like that. That was the solution that was developed last year to fund that Mike Jamboree. In the past, the previous 1 or 2 events, we just did it. We just did all of the work. We donated the ice time, that type of thing. So last year we said, well, let's use these donation funds to comp that day, and it's a great day. There's tons of people that come to town, and you know, the pizza boxes at Friendly Confines are 10 feet tall, waiting for that day to happen. So it's a good thing. A lot of people come to town, and that was the solution last year to fund it, kind of an in-kind deal.
If I remember correctly, I think originally it was proposed as a separate donation, and then there was funds available through this program, and it got moved into that, and so for that portion last year.
I believe you're right.
It was also, if I believe, part of our policy, when people are using our facility, if they're not paying for it, that we account for it in some way. That was part of what we were doing.
So just some statistics on that event, so you guys can put some numbers to it. Like I said, this year will be the most that we've ever had. In the past, it's been 20 teams, and typically, like I said, of that makeup, 4 to 5 of those teams are our own kids from our own team, and then the rest are out of town kids. So they'll be anywhere between this year. It's going to be roughly about 250 to 280 kids that are participating, and then all their parents and siblings that come to town. So we do, that day is a big event. It's a busy day in town for all the restaurants and bars and stuff like that. And like I said, it's a one day, and it's the one thing that's been well received for us that we're able to do that. We bring them in, we run them through, they're able to be in our community for a day, and then they're able to go home. So it's not something that we have to bring them back multiple days. It's been a good deal.
Appreciate your explanation, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anybody have any other questions, thoughts, ideas?
I do have one more. I'd like the city administrator to address the issue of the scholarships at the community center. It's an interesting figure how precise it is, 4585.56. That's not what I'm asking you about, by the way. If we don't do this, cannot the city say a different way? The city could still reduce the fee for certain people without us having to be part of this mix. Is that correct?
That is correct. City council has the full authority on fees for these things. You could separately approve a donation program. It's just not budgeted this year. That was kind of the idea behind this. But you could start a program, and the fees could be reduced for that. But this is what staff has come up with for what that cost could be to offer the scholarship program to the community. So there's options. City council has all of the options that you could probably think of as far as funding these things. So if that's something you'd want to pursue, we could talk about it. But there is general fund considerations for the community center that in our pack we're working through right now, just getting a good grasp on what things cost. So you do have the ability to either fund it outside of this program or develop a program completely separate from what we have going on right now.
Mayor, I kind of agree with Councilman Krogan. I mean, if we're supplementing the Sueur Community Center already, I mean, do we need to bring it here and have us give a donation back? I mean, it's just kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, really.
Yeah, I think it's more of an accounting than anything, just to kind of keep track of what's actually being tied up in kind with what staff is giving as far as their time, equipment that's being used. That's one of the things we did last year.
Right, no, I understand. But if we want to make that $20,000 budget, that would be something I'd seriously look at.
I want to go ahead and ask our 2 members of the RPAC if I could. When you guys brought this, when this item was on the agenda for RPAC, what were the thoughts that you guys may have? Councilmember Sullivan and Councilmember Fabelous are our RPAC members.
Thinking back to the original conversation about this, the gentleman that brought it up was actually referring to that he thought there were businesses in the community that would be willing to step up and set up a donation program. That was initially always proposed, because we know there's people in the community that don't have the ability to pay for some of the activities or events that go on at the community center. So it was proposed that we somehow work to create a donation program, or not a donation program, but a program to allow these underprivileged children to participate in activities.
Where the businesses would be solicited.
That was the way it was initially proposed, and then I know we had a conversation that it was going to get brought here.
Okay. My second question would be, was there any kind of a head count that was talked about as far as how many people would be participating in this program should something like this get approved?
I don't recall.
There must be, because she calculated
She's got one in here.
down to the cents.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how that number came about.
Well, if you might recall, we received a chart of some kind about the programs at the community center, indicating which ones were earning money and which ones were not. And my guess is that was probably the genesis of this. Mr. City Administrator, I've got to give you another tough question. If people were to donate to the city for this scholarship fund, Would that be a tax deductible contribution for those that wanted it? Because the city is a tax exempt or whatever. I'm looking at us, whether or not it would, if people gave to that fund so a student would have a scholarship, if they could get a tax advantage to that. Maybe we don't know the answer.
Yeah, I believe so, but I'd like to consult with finance or legal to determine it. I believe so. I believe that we can accept donations and they are tax deductible, but I'd have to confirm.
I understand. It's just a possible consideration. It strikes me hearing from our pack, if there's any more, we need to hear it. But this could be a separate program that could be administered through the city as a scholarship program. Not our money, but contributions from the public or other organizations. Ironically, some are probably on this list.
So right now, what I see is if we're looking at the community center as a possible eliminate, and to Councilmember Croton's point regarding Small Business Development Center and the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, we're basically talking about $8,500 that would come off that 36.3. So now we're at about 27.5, somewhere in there. So does anybody else think of some things that we might be able to cut, or somebody have an idea in regards to perhaps minimizing those amounts so that the charitable organizations that we've just talked about that could be considered for possible donations, they could receive something. But obviously we couldn't do it all because it'd be about $8,000 over. Anybody got any thoughts on that?
Give me a moment here while we look at this, please. Okay, I was not part of the conversation for the
right back.
Right, and one of the things that's running through my head is that this is, they're using the schools, the scholarship program, fees program, they're going through the lunch program to determine. And, not everybody that could qualify would be going to, through the school.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That, because you would have to belong to the school district,
Good information.
which kind of falls away from being a community center.
Another thought that I had here for us to consider might be if we were to go ahead and take care of the chamber, the backpack program, the food shelf, the hockey, the Little League. Let's just assume that we did that. Something that we didn't do last year was the United Fund of the Sueur. Perhaps that could be, because we know that the United Fund is basically funding at least a couple of these things already. So maybe we make that the catch-all so that we can honor the requests and then take whatever the difference is and give that to United Fund, just as a thought. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Councilmember Huntington.
It's hard to speak on behalf of the United Fund. I'm a member of it. I'm the vice president of the United Fund. So what I'm going to say is we do support the backpack program, the food shelf, the HRA, in our donations too. So,
But they would still be getting those donations.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a legal end to this. I know that in the Lions Club, there's some legal issue that stops us from donating to other organizations that donate to other organizations.
Yeah.
Something here isn't right. If you're giving the money to a cause that handles a particular thing, that's one thing. The chamber is handling, the money is going toward this. for the betterment or so on of the community. The community center, again, it's not like they're giving donations out to somebody else. The backpack program, is a direct donation. That's not giving donations out to other people. That is, you know, the United Fund is the only one on here that I see that is, we would be contributing money to contribute money to other organizations or other, it's a pass-through.
Let me break out my calculator and see if I can come up with a number here.
Hey, while you do that, I can address, I'll refer to the legal memo from legal counsel back in 2017, and I'll use the Habitat for Humanity example. In that Habitat for Humanity application, there was a request for a specific project, and that didn't meet the public purpose expenditure qualities. And what basically came from that exercise is that we want to give to an organization that might divvy up to different organizations. So somebody like the United Fund or Smith, for example, they donate to different organizations. Those are what our preferred, what I would say our preferred donations actually are those that divvy them up. And it might be different between a private or a 5013C or a municipality. But as far as determining public purpose, you can say, well, the United Fund of Sueur is going to do things for Sueur. Whereas, like that donation that's in the example of the memo is, we're going to do something for Sueur for this specific property that doesn't necessarily meet the public purpose expenditure. So I would almost say that the legal opinion is the opposite of that. It might be different. I don't know private or 501(c) law, but from what I gather from our legal opinion is that we prefer to have it be like somebody like Smith or Small Business Development Commission or the United Fund of Sueur. But it really comes down to if City Council feels it's public purpose expenditure. So I would say that it wouldn't limit any of them that are up there.
Well, but if you supported the United Fund, you could not do the backpack program, not do food shelf, not do HRA, and instead use that money towards United Fund for those causes, right?
If I may,
You don't know if it's actually gonna go to those causes.
No, but that's to them to be able to use. In this case, we could be allowing for that. And can we ask, can you request that that's what that money goes to?
from the City Council to the United Fund of Sueur,
Yeah.
for example. That conversation I think could be had, but I assume there's a board and there's other things involved as far as who makes those approvals. So we could request that. I don't know if it's contingent on that. There's a couple different options.
Well, you could always just express your desire, but not make it a contingency. You give them the money, but not just say, we would hope that you would support the following, which they do anyway.
Yeah. So I've come up with some numbers here. If we were to treat the Sueur backpack program, the food shelf, and HRA as separate entities, that total right there would be $3,400. On top of that, the United Fund would get the $2,653.50. So in essence, in reality, the United Fund would be getting $6,053.50. But $3,400 of it is already going to the three other programs. Then we would be able to go ahead and fund the chamber at their request. We'd be able to go ahead and fund Little League for their request, hockey at their request, and of course the United Fund would be considerably less because there's $3,400 of that would go to three designated programs.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, you're also taking out the community center one, making that separate?
That community center I've scratched completely. I've scratched the Smith, and I've scratched the small business development to come up with this number.
Would you repeat that, I think, so everybody gets it clear. I think now we know what it's about.
Okay, so we have $36,335 worth of requests. We have $20,000 to work with. In order to make this work, the options as I see is we either go ahead and just give 55% to each of the charities requested. That would basically account for the 20,000. All 10 would get something. But if we have charities that we feel we can maybe do something different with, or they're perhaps not giving us the bang for the buck, as Councilmember Krogman suggested, that would eliminate the community center of 48 or 4585, 56, small business development center for 1,500, and the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation for $2,500. So we take those out of the equation. Then we go ahead and have the available monies left to, in essence, go ahead and give the $10,000 to the chamber, the $2,000 to the backpack program, the $400 for the food shelf, the $1,000 for the Sueur Henderson Little League, the $33,4650 to the Minnesota River Youth Hockey Association, and $2,653.50 to the United Fund of Sueur, $1,000 to HRA.
Yep. How much for the United Fund?
The United Fund would be $26,5350. Somebody please maybe double check my math. If the math is right, then I think we are in a position where if people are ready to move on, we're past discussion, we can go ahead and entertain a motion.
So if I may, while you guys are looking at that, just confirm the numbers that we have, or that you're proposing. There isn't a motion on the table yet, but just the $10,000 for the chamber, $1,000 for the Sueur Little League, $33,4650 for the Minnesota River Youth Hockey, $1,000 for the HRA. Is that correct? And then the remainder goes to the United Fund of the Sueur.
Well,
That only comes to 17,000.
you'd have the 2,000 going to the backpack program, you'd have the 400 going to the food shelf.
So backpack.
Then whatever's left over would go into the Sueur United Fund.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Kirby.
and just to reiterate, the food shelf, that $400, that was for utilities, correct?
I believe so,
Yeah.
yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Does that
Good
come up
point.
to 20,000 roughly?
Is that
And
what you come up with?
then $32,5350 to the United Fund.
32.
To round, to make.
Yeah, whatever the number would be.
$32,5350, and I'll double check the numbers.
32,5350.
Here, I'm ready.
Okay, would you like to go ahead?
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we adopt that donation plan.
I'll go ahead and second that motion. Is there any additional discussion?
Do we have it added up to 20,000 yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think we should appoint a task group of some kind to consider this for the future, to look at options, for example, with in-kind, could we have a separate fund for that? I'm not saying to do it, I'm saying we should have a group that looks at this, try to figure out a plan. I'm concerned because we're getting a lot of duplication, maybe there's a way to be able to weed that out before we even get this in front of us. So I'd suggest that. I'll leave it to you and your discretions.
And I'd like to add on to that, to not only creating a task force, but to also come up with a hard deadline in regards to when these requests have to be in. I believe that we had some requests that came in after our deadline. And I think that if people are going to be interested in asking the city for a charitable contribution, the paperwork should be spot on, and they should be able to meet the deadline.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Favlis.
I would like to see this process deadline be in December, because we get this on Thursday and have to vote on it on Monday, and I don't think that there's enough time to go through it the way that we can go through it.
I think the task force will address quite a bit of that, don't you think?
Well, I think that the deadline should be in December instead of in February. For, it's not like they're not gonna know, if they're going to be looking for money, at the end of the year. Everybody else is doing their budgets at the end of the year. Why aren't we getting it when they're doing their budgets?
That's a good point. Okay, that, we're gonna have to deal with that at a separate time, obviously, but if I hear everybody correctly, we're gonna look at creating a task force. We're gonna be looking for a deadline in December of each year. And the third part would be to make sure that the paperwork is filled out properly and that we have a complete history in front of us. And I'm sure we'll be able to gather all that once we have this task force. Okay. So, next item on the docket is 6 Bravo, the comprehensive plan update, city administrator approval.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, this is the first item of the, I'd call it modified retreat agenda. I've provided everybody with the agenda. I've sent it out as well. Essentially, we're going to have 3 times slotted during your regular meetings or a special meeting in March to go over items that we would have normally went over during the retreat that was scheduled for February 1st. So this is the first touch point from this, and we're going to kind of transition into a discussion mode as opposed to we're decision making at this point. Keep in mind that when we do these exercises that we're leading up to the adoption of goals and priorities for the next years and even our long-term goals and priorities too. We have the ones that we adopted last year over here, and then we have the long-term goals upstairs on the bulletin board as well. We can revise them how we feel fit. But the big thing is to talk tonight about the comprehensive plan and just provide an update as far as where we're at, what we see happening with that in 2020, and just talk about the process that you guys can expect as far as when we amend the comprehensive plan. So, as a little history, the comp plan was adopted on October 24th, 2016. I want to confirm that number. That's the number that's in the document, but then I saw in the CPAT bylaws it's the next meeting in November. So I'll look back and confirm that. But it was adopted in 2016, and it really outlines the vision for the community. Sueur as a community had call it a comprehensive plan update is what it was called in I believe 1956. And then from there, we didn't have any updates, and in 2016, we adopted a comprehensive plan. Now, it's not required of communities our size in this area, so it's something that the City Council chose to do to provide guidance for what we feel the city should transform into. In 2020, there will be a series of amendments that you will see, and I'll go through the process of what to expect from those amendments. But one, zoning map amendment and zoning language amendment, that's going to be happening at the Planning Commission, I believe, in March, and then that'll go to City Council, maybe that second meeting in March or the first meeting in April. We're looking at a priority growth area amendment, so having a map and a figure going and describing where we believe we're going to grow and where our priority areas are. On top of that, think of it as you're kind of layering these things. Your priority growth area, on top of that, you'll have your future land use, and that'll overlay on the priority growth area. So you'll have some areas outside of our corporate limits, and then what we believe that future land use should be for those areas. Now, these things are modifiable. You can modify them as you feel fit. If we have a business or something come into town and say, in your priority growth area, this is residential, but I really want this to be business, we can have that conversation, and we can always modify it based on what's happening. Go ahead.
So the priority growth area map, do we have a time frame in regards to when we expect to be getting involved with that?
Yeah, so that should be completed probably I think it should be up to City Council in April. It should hit the Planning Commission in March, and then, City Council in April.
Okay.
Same with the priority growth area and the land use will be kind of running parallel together, so those two will happen. And those two need to be completed before we do the transportation and utility plan, which is a big undertaking. It takes into the priority growth area, the future land use, and then what kind of utilities do we need to have within the city to get them their proper water, sewer, electric, stormwater, those types of things. And that'll all be outlined in that document. We have these in the capital improvement plan, so they will get done in 2020. Likely the transportation and utility plan amendments, that'll be towards the end of this year. And then we'll be done and we'll have them. It'll be a good guiding document for the planning commission, city council, citizens. So I'll warn you that the journey may be rough. It may be challenging. We may get a lot of input from citizens that might not want a road that goes through their area or that extends from their area. So just be prepared for that. It's conversations that need to be had, and we'll do it in a respectful manner.
We had 10% completion at the end of 2019 for the transportation utility plan. Could you just maybe give us the basics in regards to what that 10% consisted of?
Yeah, so we have an RFP that's been developed for that. We're waiting for the priority growth area future land use to be done. So it's the transportation and utility plan is of the scale that we're going to go out for an RFP on it. It meets that threshold as far as the cost that we think it will be. And you know, we'll look at our city engineer, Bolton Mank, but we'll also look at what other engineering firms could bring to the table and make sure that the costs are in line and competitive. So,
and what did we put in the 2020 budget for the RFP?
$50,000. So, yep, no problem. And I'll talk a little bit about the amendment process so everybody understands it and it can be conveyed to everybody if there's conversations that you have. But the Planning Commission will hold a public hearing for the amendment that's being proposed. The Planning Commission will then make a recommendation to City Council as far as they should approve this, and generally what the Planning Commission would do if there's modifications is modify it in a manner in which they would approve it to City Council. And then City Council would consider it via resolution, and once that resolution is adopted, then that plan is adopted. You do need a 2/3 vote, so we need 5 out of 7 members to pass that in order for it to be adopted. So it's a supermajority vote that's required for any comp plan amendments. It's a little different than normal majority. One other nuance, just so everybody's aware, is if we ever want to amend, and we have done that, or update the charter, that requires a unanimous vote from City Council. So there's a couple little things that we need to keep an eye on, but in general, yeah, it's there's a process. There will be a public hearing for all of these amendments, and the public will be able to be heard and documented if there are any issues. Comprehensive plan questions. Do we have any questions about the comprehensive plan? The plan, we're out as a city of published comprehensive plans. I don't have it. I actually gave my version away. I have a digital version that I use. The plan will be, because it's about $40 a copy to make them. Because of all the amendments that we're going to have this year, the plan is not to print any. They're available online. We could probably print some off here locally if we would want to, but the plan is not to print anymore until after 2020 when these 4 major amendments are done, just to save on some costs. And then really, so goals and priorities will be linked directly to the sections of the comprehensive plan, as we did in 2019. So looking at those goals and priorities, linking to the various sections and making sure that our goals and priorities align with the comprehensive plan. So in general, the comprehensive plan is our guiding document. We use it every day to make decisions and prioritize items to complete for the city. Really, this is just a reminder that we're going to continue to use it. We're going to use it for the last part of our retreat kind of clinic and forming our goals and priorities. So with that, I'll entertain any questions you may have about the comprehensive plan in general or just general discussion.
I have a question.
Councilmember.
I can't find it in this. My only criticism of this is it's too much. It's said jokingly because it's all essential. It's just hard to find things. But there's a requirement in here for an annual community forum. My understanding is we've really never done one as a community forum. We had a video one time that we used at an event that the chamber put on. But where are we? We should be having an annual forum where we're updating the community and getting input from them. Where are we on that?
Yep. So I believe what you're referring to is the Future of the City Forum. We've had plans in the past to have something, comprehensive plan, we'll get to that in the next section. CPAT is actually tasked with facilitating the Future of the City Forum. So that's one of the things that's described in the bylaws. It's an important thing. We did do a video, I believe, last year, and we did show it at the Business Expo. That's, I believe, in March. So we did that, but you know, what a lot of communities do is they'll do kind of a state of the city event. We call it that too, I believe, but really talk about where we're at, where we're going. You know, facilitated and by the mayor, essentially, is how that generally works. Not to put any pressure on Mayor Haig, but you know, we've struggled with finding a good date that we feel comfortable with, and then last year CPAT really, with resignations and not being able to get quorum for the one meeting that we scheduled, has been difficult. So it has fallen off, but I think it's a priority, and I think when we have the CPAT discussion, we'll have to talk about it. General consensus that I've gotten is, you know, CPAT's important. We should have CPAT. We should reboot it. So I would think that would be a task that CPAT would try to figure out as far as coming up with a good date for it. I think I know, thinking back to CPAT in 2017 and 2018, we really spun our wheels on what event would be perfect for the Future of the City Forum. So it would be a discussion that I would say they would have, and ultimately City Council.
One final comment. It should be one of our goals, simply.
Yes.
So it should be up on the wall, on the goal sheet. We're going to do it.
Back to your question, it's page 71, and there is supposed to be a meeting that occurs each December.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
And I would agree with the city administrator. 6 Charlie and 6 Bravo are very much entwined, so this is a non-action item. So I think that when we move on into the CPAC conversation, we're going to have to find out that we have some positions we need to get filled. We're going to have to go ahead and solicit input from the community to go ahead and get some people on board with CPAT. And once I believe we have a complete CPAT team and we can actually have quorum, we can be in a position where we can actually do these things. And as the city administrator stated, we kind of ran into some snags with that along the way last year, but we had every intention of doing a state of the city or a city forum, however we want to call it. We were planning on doing that right around the time of Giant Celebration, but it just didn't happen because we just didn't have the people. So
The only thing I guess I'd piggyback on that, back to Councilman Krogman's point, is whether we have CPAT or not, we need to make sure that's done if it's part of our comprehensive plan. So whether we have a CPAT or not, we should be making sure we complete that yearly.
Yeah. And to be clear, Councilmember Schluter, you said that the state of the city is due in December.
According to what it says according to what it says in the comp plan, it's on page 71, and it says Future of the City Forum is to occur in December of each year after plan adoption.
Thank you.
But again, we could amend that later if we find there's a better time. The key is we do one.
Yeah, without a doubt. It almost seems to me that it'd make more sense to do it around the time of the Giant Celebration, when we're going to have an awful lot of people within the community. It'd be a good time to do it. Even if we could put it out on a video or something like that, so it'd be available on Facebook and live stream. But somehow, some way, we have to get this done. So, that said, this is a non-action item. If anybody has any other thoughts, questions, or concerns, if not, we'll go ahead and move on. Anybody? We'll move on then to item 6 Charlie. 6 Charlie is the Comprehensive Plan Action Team, CPAT update, City Administrator Brutal.
Mayor Haig, members of City Council, we kind of bled into this agenda item a little bit, and it's good because you know, I think there was a lot of work that was put in. You can see by the bylaws that were included in the packet, there's, you know, organized efforts. There's still some need to kind of finish those off. A little history about CPAT. It was established in 2017. It was tasked with the following items: to develop proposed comprehensive plan amendments, develop an action item completion plan, monitor the progress of the action plan, and facilitate the future of the city forum. If you remember back in 2018, the various boards and commissions adopted an action plan that really aligned with what the city council goals were. Really, I think the piece that's missed is just the monitoring of that from that group, if that's what we want to continue. To me, I think the conversation should be had, is it something that we let, if we do choose to have CPAT, I think we're, I personally am leaning towards it. I think it'll be helpful, but allowing these different boards and commissions to have action plans, it might be kind of counterproductive. It might be a matter of the city council adopting their goals and then assigning kind of what we had here, different goals to the different groups, and saying, here's your action plan, instead of asking the groups to come up with their own action plans. Those are just some ideas that we've talked about internally that might make things a little bit easier, because there's, the groups might not have the same goals and priorities as city council, but in the grand scheme of things, we should all be working towards the same common goals at the end of the day. Not to say that those groups can't work towards other goals, but really the big picture goals should be related, as far as I think the comprehensive plan action team. But again, that future of the city forum facilitated by CPAT. The current status of the group, all the terms have expired, so they all ended in 2019. I have reached out to the 2 at-large members that are on there. I've heard back from one; they're interested in continuing to participate. The other I have not heard back from yet. But really, what we have is the chair being Mayor Haig, the staff liaison person being the city administrator, and then there's a planning commission member, which we could easily appoint or talk about at the planning commission meeting, and then an EDA member that is part of that group, and then there's 2 at-large members. So I think we're pretty close to being able to have a quorum. It's just a matter of getting the planning commission to basically appoint somebody, have the EDA appoint somebody, and then solicit applications for one more at-large member position. And then we could have enough people to fill up the group, and then we could have our first meeting to kind of reboot the program.
The community development director is also part of the CPAT team.
They were back in 2018, 2019. The direction was that city administrator would be the staff liaison, and then we didn't have an ex officio. I think that's how it's phrased in the bylaws, is that there was a chair, a staff liaison, and then an ex officio. And previously, the community development director was the staff liaison, and the city administrator was the ex officio.
So it's a six person panel.
Let's see.
You'd have 5 voting plus staff.
Five. Five voting plus staff. Yeah.
So, and to be clear, the planning commission member and the EDA member, we would not want to have those as members of city council. We would want these to be the citizen representatives of those 2 entities.
I think that would be fair to say. I think that it may be redundant to have the council representative to be on the CPAC team. I think it would be good to spread that out. So, general questions: do we want to reboot CPAT? And then, do we need to amend the bylaws? Which I think we do, based on just the current makeup of the chair and the staff liaison. There's some things in there. There's some missing places, some blanks in the bylaws as well. So, yeah, generally I want to hear back. Do we want to reboot CPAT? And if we do, I think staff could take a look at the bylaws and maybe amend them with the stuff that is pretty easy, and then kind of highlight some areas for discussion. And then in the meantime, we could solicit for applications for CPAT and work with the Planning Commission and EDA to get those members designated. And then hopefully, if it all lines up, we could potentially have a meeting maybe end of March into the beginning of April. Probably more like beginning of April would be more realistic to have the first CPAT meeting, and then start having them work on what's in their bylaws, their tasks.
Okay, Councilmember Sueur.
I feel that it's a very important part of the comprehensive plan, having this committee. One group that I feel that's not involved in it that should be is the Recreation and Parks Committee. I feel that one of their members should be on it instead of having two at large.
We could always add, I mean, we could remove one at large, or we could just add another board commission member, to it. I don't think that there's a required, it's not necessary to have an odd number of individuals for this, team. I think it's more of just to make sure that people are discussing and we have a bunch of different opinions from different areas, but I think that's a great point.
Yeah, I think so too, especially with the amount of effort we're gonna be looking at in the future regarding parks and trails. And that's a heavy part of our comp plan, as we all know, so that would certainly be something that could be addressed once we have the CPAD launched and ready to go at that April timeframe. So first we've gotta get the people from planning and planning commission, EDA, and then get the at-large members, reboot the program at that time and go from there. But that would certainly be a suggestion I think that we should take a good look at. Anybody else have anything?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Copeland.
No doubt about it, we need to have this team.
Yeah.
I was involved in writing the original charter, first draft. We need to do what's in their responsibilities need to be carried out. Part of it is to monitor. This is a big plan. There's a lot here. Somebody has to grab onto it, figure out what we're doing, have some short-term accomplishments that lead to bigger accomplishments, and share those with us. I do have another quick comment about the so-called bylaws. I'm not complaining that they're bylaws. They were, to my knowledge, never adopted by this council. If you read the first part of it, on the top of it, it says that the CPAP was established in February 2017 to carry out the comprehensive plan. And by the way, Mr. City Administrator, the very inside cover, if I believe it is, of the comp plan does say October, not November. We can double check that. Somewhere it's got to be correct. But the bottom line is this, because of the responsibilities being outlined and the different requirements that are there, the City Council should be the one that approves these bylaws. That's my opinion.
Okay. Councilmember Fabulous, did you have something, sir?
Kudos to Councilmember Schleter. Stole what I was going to say. Always looking for that push with RPAC to be involved with the stuff. So thank you very much for that. You know, I was on CPAC, and it was 17 and 18. Okay, but the meetings started getting stretched out for months at a time. It got pushed so that it was like 3 months and so on. What's the thought process in this? Because this is the third Monday of every month is how this thing reads out, and then it started being pushed way ahead. So what's the thought process in this?
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. It seemed like it became a quarterly thing as opposed to a monthly obligation. A lot of it had to do with we didn't have quorum.
Well, no. What was happening with it was that there was the concern of having meetings for the sake of meetings, because you needed to, you really wanted to meet when there was going to be something that was actionable. And that's how we want to go from here, from every month to being stretched out. There was a fair amount of kind of banging your head against the wall trying to figure out, you know, how you're going to, what's going to be actionable, other than saying, make a recommendation that this group is going to do this, and this group is going to do this, and this group is going to do that. I'm all for a reboot. I'm curious as to you said that you're leaning towards it, but what would be the reason to not be leaning towards it?
Well, to be clear, I think we should have it, but, you know, it is a lot of staff time. It's a lot of city council time. I think that was one of the reasons why we had a couple individuals resign, is just the time commitment to a monthly meeting. So keep that in mind. It's an additional thing that staff and really the citizen volunteers will have to participate in to be successful.
You know, the other aspect was the draw on staff, because with the community development director being involved, there was an expectation that was in there that the community development director would be doing all of this stuff, and CPAC would make decisions, and staff would move forward with that. You know, in a reboot, from after being on this, you know, I would want to have an idea as to how this is going to function different than what it was before. That's a huge expectation to put on any one staff member. So how is this going to change?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but it would be something that we'd have to discuss and have honest conversations about, as far as how much time it would take and what those expectations are, just so we can have realistic expectations, so manage those expectations from the group and from city council, and be realistic about what can be accomplished in a certain amount of time. You know, I think going back to the core function of the group really is to help provide guidance to city council as far as what parts of the comprehensive plan are priorities, and doing those things. You know, I think that's to me, that's the basis of the group itself, is to make sure we're on track and we're doing the things that are prioritized correctly. You know, some of the other stuff, like the action plans for the different groups, those are good ideas, but I think that in reality they do take up quite a bit of time to be able to get all the groups on the same page. Whereas if we kind of change it up, where it's kind of a top-down approach, and city council adopts policies and goals and divvies up the work to the different boards and commissions, and eventually it makes its way back up to city council, that might be a better model. I don't know what the real good answer is, but I know that it was a large dedication of time in 2017, 2018 when this was happening.
Well, again, what I can see as a concern is, for us moving forward, we're talking about the future of the city forum, and it's easy in that case for the CPAC group to say, oh, we want to have this and have that, and it's a grandiose idea as to how that's supposed to move forward, and then CPAC goes home, and you still have this event that has to be put on, and normally in a call it a 501c3 setup, you'd have a director that's what that job was. You know, we're talking about doing events and organizing and so on for this, and I don't know that you've got a dedicated staff personnel for being able to do that type, which is it's where I see failure was happening the first time around. I think that, yes, while we're talking about rebooting it, and I love the idea of rebooting it, I mean, there's some logistics in there that I think we really have to hammer out far better than just saying, yeah, we're going to reboot this.
Anybody else have anything? Councilmember Sueur, you have something over there?
I just feel that the team should be an interaction between the different committees, because all the committees are seeing what they're working on the comp plan, and the problems they're having, or where they're making progress. And I just think each of the committees should be working together on CPAC.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Just a quick question back to the current status. Who's the second city council representative? So we've got Mayor Haig, but in the bylaws it says there's 2 elected council representatives for 2-year terms. So it actually
Well, the
shows in
other
the,
person was Councilmember Fabeley's back when we were doing this, yes.
17 and 18 hours on.
but I'm just wondering why that changed when our bylaws show that we have 2 now.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I think that was just missed by me in the bylaws, so just pulling that out. So, if we need to appoint another individual from city council, that would be another person that would be in there.
I think what I'd like to see happen here is we're gonna be obviously making a decision on this on the 2nd of March. So what I would like everybody to do is to use this time to go ahead and give some really good thought to the whole idea behind CPAC. And while you're at it, probably be a good idea to brush up on the comp plan as well. And that way we can have an intelligent conversation on the 2nd of March regarding what we see as the future of CPAC and what roles and responsibilities we think we're gonna need to address moving forward. Does that sound like a fair enough challenge? And that said, put together like a memo or something of that nature regarding your thoughts, so you got some talking points to bring to that meeting on the 2nd of March. Fair enough? Okay. Again, it's a non-action item, so we can go ahead and move on at this point. The next item on the docket is 6 Delta, which is the communications, methods and approaches. It's a retreat item. And with that, I'd like to welcome Director Lawrence. Good evening, Director Lawrence.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Okay, so as you all know, this was supposed to be a retreat item, so we'll just jump right into it. So I'm just gonna briefly go over our communications methods, our approaches, jump in with questions, or we can chat about it towards the end. So some of our basic methods that we utilize most often are obviously our city website. We use social media, including Facebook, Twitter, and Nextdoor. We use our local news outlets, which include radio, newspaper, and we will use our local TV stations as well. Our city newsletter, as a reminder, that comes out with your utility bill every month, and it's also available on the city website. We send items to the Chamber of Commerce to be included in their chamber chat, and we will utilize direct mail as well. For example, when we did the meter change out, we did direct mailing. Sometimes we'll do postcards, or we'll include information in the monthly utility mailings. Casper can go to the next slide. Social media by the numbers. So I broke these down a little bit in case anybody had some interest in how many people we have following us. So for Facebook, we have the City of Sueur's page. We have 1,886 followers, which I think is pretty impressive. The Sueur Police Department has 2,006. We're closing that gap. They were ahead of us for quite a while, but we're narrowing that gap a little bit. And the Sueur Community Center has 1,346. We still do use Twitter. We have 178 followers. Depending on who you talk to in the social media world, Twitter's maybe dying, but we continue to use it. If there's a few people that we can reach via that method, I continue to use it. It doesn't take me long to post things there, so I use it whenever possible. And Nextdoor, which I think most everybody is familiar with, we have 660 people in our neighborhood, Sueur residents. That's in town. We also have rural Sueur as well. Does anybody have questions about social media?
You mentioned TV. Just to be clear, right now we don't have anything set up with MediaCom. Is that correct?
Correct. So when I was saying TV, we will send press releases to KUIC. That's probably the one that'll pick up our stories the most, but we send things to the major network stations as well.
And what plans do we have in place to get our PEG channel available for our cable or our MediaCom customers? And do we have any idea how many MediaCom customers we
Jasper
have in
can
the
probably
city?
answer that, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great segue into a meeting Stacy and I had last week with a video service provider to try and figure this out because we think it's important. We have a channel that we have access to, and we've talked about getting a different video system for the city council chambers to better serve the community and give a better content to them, more clear, get to know the council members a little bit better. Part of the system that we're going to look at, and I think it might actually go to city council for consideration on the 24th, is the ability to schedule events to be played back through the MediaCom channel and to do things like that. Not through an enormous system like we had before, but basically through a thumb drive and a computer. So it's going to be another tool that we can use in the future. How we utilize it, we'll have to develop that and see what works best. But at a minimum, letting people know when meetings are, putting the city council meetings on there on some sort of schedule. That's what we're going to try to do, and implementation of that. I mean, it would be this year sometime. And probably if we would decide to purchase the equipment, we could get that installed within probably a couple months, implemented, and then really develop the protocols for sending it to MediaCom. So they're aware that we want to do this. They're, per the franchise agreement, they're required to provide us a high definition feed to City Hall, which we currently don't have that. We have an SD feed, so they know they need to get an HD feed to us.
What is an SD feed for the benefit of those that...
Standard definition feed. It's what you generally probably saw in the 90s on your TV, and now you have, it's 1080i is what MediaCom broadcasts in, and that's what we need to send that information in. So we're working on it. It'll be another tool that people will be able to access, and we'll be able to watch city council meetings on our channel in the near future, we hope.
Councilmember families.
That was an issue even way back when, because I was helping and working with the person that was running it before, and you had a high definition product that could have been sent out, but you had two boxes that were taking that signal and dropping it to analog and then sending that back out to and they were supposed to upgrade that 6 years ago, and they still didn't. They hadn't done it.
Okay. Just a question regarding MediaCom. With the franchise agreement that we have with them, are they to supply this equipment, or is this a cost that would be that the city of Sueur would be responsible for?
It's a good question. So we have this PEG fee, the infamous PEG fee that we generate funds with, that can only be used for things like this, like video equipment. It generates $6,000 a year, roughly. This system is $26,000, so we would be asking, do we want to purchase it right now, or do we want to wait to accumulate the funds over 4 years, then purchase it, or front the cash, pay ourselves back, front the cash this year and pay ourselves back over the next 3 years. So those will be the options that are provided at the meeting where we evaluate this. Those things are expensive, and we don't generate that much in PEG fees, but we have to spend it on capital items like a video system.
So we have about a 4.5 year return on investment on this. I guess it goes back to the question regarding how many subscribers do we have to MediaCom. I mean, if we have 10% of our city that's using MediaCom and 90% are on Dish and Direct, is it worth the money to do this? And then my second part of the question would be, how would we use Dish and Direct with the PEG? How does that work?
Those are great questions. Dish and Direct with PEG, they wouldn't have access to it.
Not at all.
No, not through a channel per se. They can always go online and look at it through live stream. If we go to this system, the system will move from live stream to YouTube, which is what the majority or a lot of communities do, which will also save us about $2,600 a year. YouTube's free, live stream is $2,600. So there will be a little savings there. by doing this. We'll go bring a full cost breakdown. But as far as MediaCom customers in town, their market saturation is less than 50%. So 900 customers roughly right now, and they're dropping, so they're not increasing their customers right now. So that peg fee is probably as high as it'll ever be right now. It'll drop down periodically unless something changes with the video service market.
And to be clear, the peg fee is tied to the number of subscribers.
The peg fee is a set amount per account that each person or each residence pays. I don't know what that is, if it's $2 a month per $1.50 per month or something like that. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's a set amount per month that each account pays. And we set that amount, the city
But
council does.
ultimately, it's tied to subscribers.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions over here before we move on?
All right, next up. What's next for us? So we have been discussing some digital signage options. So, what does that look like? Potentially, some monitors on the outside of City Hall, inside City Hall. I guess Jasper, you can chat a little more about that if you want. Maybe if we're going to do some digital bulletin boards, things like that. Potentially, maybe outside City Hall, I guess would probably be the best option. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or Jasper, you want to interject?
I'll interject a little bit. What we're looking at is a kind of an all-encompassing system that is easy to manage. That we can put something maybe on the outside or in the area of City Hall. We don't know exactly where, if it's going to be on the building or a kiosk down in the corner of Second and Ferry down by the police department. But something where we can put, there's a meeting happening now, or there's a snow emergency, and that can be on that digital signage. Also, what we want to do is have something internally. The bulletin board that we have upstairs, we just print off something and post it there with a tack. Replacing that with something that posts all of our meetings, and it's kind of on a rotation, more of a higher definition thing than outside would be like an LED conglomeration of a bunch of different LED panels. Inside it would be almost like a rotating PowerPoint or slideshow that we could then use that to post our meetings. We could also post community meetings or job postings or anything like that. A little bit easier and probably more visible and visually appealing than a piece of paper on a bulletin board that you can look at. So the other thing that it would do is it would secure that we actually post it. A meeting, it's there. Anybody could go up and pull down our posting off our bulletin board. We don't think that that's happened in the past. Accidentally somebody's maybe taken one down, but it would be more secure and we'd have more control over that. So we're looking at kind of an all-encompassing solution to that, also including the community center to be able to put up some digital signage, advertising, things like that there. So we're trying to figure out what suits us best, really what's the most affordable and easiest to use solution. But I think it's kind of, to me, the missing piece as far as communications. Snow emergencies are still something kind of new to the community. We started them last year, but one of the biggest complaints that we have, or that I get after the fact, is I didn't know that there was a snow emergency. And I don't have a TV, I don't have a radio, I don't have a computer, I don't have a smartphone. The only way I found out is my neighbor told me. Well, if you really need to, you could look at City Hall and there could be signage there or something. It's just another tool that we can use, and we strive to get the information out to as many people as we can, as efficiently as we can, but there's always, no matter what, somebody gets missed or doesn't get the information inevitably. So, really, we're trying to cover all of our bases, and if there's something that you think that we could do better or that we could use as a tool, let us know. But we're trying to really keep our finger on the pulse of how to communicate and what the most effective way to do it is, and reach the most people. And the mayor has a great point. Do we want to spend $25,000 or $26,000 on a system that we're maybe getting, 900 households that maybe half of those might watch it? Is that, or is there better bang for your buck? So those are things that we'll have to consider and try to figure out moving forward.
And to be clear, in our 2020 budget under CIP, CEP, did we put anything in there that would deal with our communications, updating for 2020.
We did put an item in there for the video.
And how much money was that?
I believe it was 25,000 for the video system.
And just back to
Councilmember
that,
Sullivan.
back to that video system, so that'll benefit MediaCom customers, but it'll also benefit our web users, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So you're hitting more than just the 900 MediaCom customers with that.
Very good point.
And even, right, MediaCom customers could use the other option,
Right.
Yeah.
for example, on a portable device.
Yeah.
I have another quick question. Forgive me, I don't know the technical term. It's something like SMT or something like that. I get notifications all the time by text.
SMS.
SMS, okay? Can we use that kind of a platform for snow emergency, for example?
We do. So on the city website, we have a lot of subscribable content. You know, some of it you can subscribe to our calendar updates,
Yeah.
you can subscribe to agenda updates. Alerts is one of them, and you can choose if you'd like them via email or SMS via text. So yes, those are certainly available.
I think that's important for us to even say it here,
Agreed.
for those who watch or are aware of what we're doing. That would be the way to me to get to people about parking, because it's gonna pop up on their smartphone as opposed to having to go somewhere. It's I forget what the technical term again is, it's pushed to you, if I remember is the right term, is that right?
Yes, and we have those customizable as well. So I think sometimes people are hesitant thinking like, I don't want to, mail that I didn't sign up
Right.
for. All of those things are easily subscribable to exactly what kind of alerts you would like from the city and which ones you wouldn't. It's a good point, yep.
Yeah, depending on who your service provider is, SMS does have a fee associated with it. So, not all of it, but some would.
Correct, and I think we have 131 subscribers to the snow emergency stuff, so it'd be great to get more. That's, it went from 0 last year to 131, but, I think we have some content that we can repost from last year on how to subscribe. I think that would be good, especially now, if we have a snowy February.
Yeah, we did it in November, but now would be a good time to remind everybody for the recent snowfall, so.
And that'd be another good thing to add to the newsletter as well, just to remind people.
I'm glad you segued to the newsletter, because I want to get back to that. My question on that is, right now, we have a one-page newsletter,
Yes.
front and back. Have we asked the question in regards to what the cost would be to go ahead and make this a multi-page document? And I say that because, quite frankly, with all the different media opportunities you've presented to us, that is the one document that every single person in the city of Sueur gets, because it is associated with their utility bill.
Well, yes and no, because if you have paperless billing, you get it as an attachment with your email. So everybody would have gotten one this month with the utility billing changeover, which was great. Everybody got a paper copy of their bill.
And with the March one as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
meaning everybody got the newsletter. So yes, it is a good point. We are going to have to ask that question with our new provider. We had limitations to, I think, 3 pages with our old provider, so that would have included a utility bill, a newsletter, and then sometimes there would be an insert, like waste management insert or something like that. So we had certain limitations in that regard. So we need to check into that, and we have different deadlines as well coming with this one. Previously, we could get content in until about 2 days before bills went out, and now we have like a 45-day window, I think, to get content out ahead. So there's definitely some things that we need to double check into, and maybe expanding on the newsletter definitely could be one of them.
Well, would it be fair to say that the one document or the one source that touches everybody?
It's our
is the
official
newsletter?
publication, correct?
Okay.
Yep.
So, that said, the money that we'd be spending on alternatives, it seems to me that, we do our due diligence on this the right way. We're gonna find that this is the preferred way to go. It's gonna be probably the cheaper solution, and even the number of subscribers right now that have chosen to go paperless. What is that number off the top of your head, ballpark?
I don't, Jasper, do you know what? I don't.
It's like right now about 20%.
20%. But that 20%, we could still send the newsletter too.
Yes, and again, anybody can get the newsletter as well through the
Right
website.
now it is, but that's gonna be going away,
Oh, I see.
starting in April.
Yeah, so we can certainly dive into that for sure and find out what our options are. Yep.
Anybody else have anything? Councilmember Crowe?
Take a deep breath and have some fun. Seriously, I appreciate all of this. We are, as a small town, for a small city, maybe we're not as small as we think we are sometimes. This is fantastic. We are cutting edge, doing the best we can, and it's better than a lot of other cities are sure are doing. So I applaud the efforts of our staff to do this communication work. It makes sense that we're doing it this way, and the citizen can be informed if they want to be. There's no reason not to be. So, thank
That's a
you.
very good point. Some people just choose not to be involved, period, let's face it. We're always gonna have that percentage of people. No matter what you do, they're just not gonna pay attention to what's going on within the city. Even those that are getting the newsletter within their utility bill, it goes right into the trash.
It does.
Yeah.
What do you do?
But it's a great conversation. I think we got some good ideas here. Looks like we do have some monies available within the budget to proceed with a plan for 2020. And again, this is something that will be actionable on the 2nd of March. Anybody else have anything that they'd like to improve?
One last thing on my list, Instagram. It's here to stay for a while. So I've been waiting to find the perfect picture to be our first Instagram post. It's gonna live forever. So expect Instagram to be coming around. I think we'd have pretty good success with that. So watch
Number
for
of
that.
subscribers on Instagram right now?
We don't have an
Right
account
now,
yet.
this is for the future.
Right, correct. Hopefully soon.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Director Lawrence, thank you so much for the presentation. I
You're
find
welcome.
it extremely enlightening, I think, along with the rest of members of City Council. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Lisa?
Yeah, I would go ahead and entertain a motion to go ahead and take a 10-minute recess so that we can get prepared to move on to